Plagiarism and Research Ethics. We will be starting the webinar shortly. We are awaiting for more participants to join us, and hence we will start it within a few minutes or so. So let all the participants join, and we will go ahead with the webinar as such. So today's webinar, unlike the previous webinars associated with research papers or how to write the PhD thesis or systematic review analysis, this particular webinar is a different one. Different in the sense we focus on research ethics with particular focus on plagiarism and a bit of focus on proofreading and editing. So we will be talking in detail about these aspects. And as I understand, many of the participants who are here today do wish to know more about the plagiarism and research ethics because it is an integral part of the overall research. So we will be talking about this in detail and we will be considering about this. So having said that, this webinar is being conducted by research graduate. So even before we proceed ahead with the webinar, let us give a brief introduction about who we are and what is that we do here. Research graduate is the best PhD and master's consulting company. Now, we offer a wide variety of services which are useful for students in and around the world nationally and internationally. When we say wide variety of services, we mean to say we talk about topic selection, proposal writing, review paper writing, and research paper writing. That's one part of it. Other part is like if you are interested in getting your thesis written completely or fragments of your thesis which you think you need, master's dissertation writing as well as statistical analysis. Now, most of the participants here, as you are aware of, they are several of the aspects which are like, required by the researcher worldwide. Some of the researchers only need for topic selection. Some of them require them specifically that you do, what you call as writing the thesis or helping in writing the research or review paper. In some of the cases, they have all the necessary material ready with them, but they need it to be checked for editing, proofreading, as well as for formatting. So maybe it might be any different kind of a service. It doesn't really bother. You can drop in a query with us, and we are here to help you at any given time. So in that way, it is very useful. So, research graduate as such helps you with a wide variety of services. You do not worry about the service that you need. You drop in your query and we are here to help you with the query. It could be of any kind, varying from topic selection to editing, any of them. We are here to help you. We cater to both national and international students, and hence it should not be a real problem if you are from foreign universities and still you need our help. We are here to help you. You can contact us at info@researchgraduate.com. That's a WhatsApp or phone number that has been provided, or you can visit our website at researchgraduate.com. Irrespective of any of them, please do contact us, and we are here to help you, and we are always there to help participants, whoever wish to get queries as well as material written by us. I hope that you have enjoyed all our previous webinars and it has been useful and informative to you guys. Having said that, a warm good afternoon to all the participants who have joined, and we shall start with our webinar now on plagiarism and research ethics. So let's get started. Before we start it, let me explain to you the way webinar has been organized today. Now, today's webinar mainly focuses on research ethics. So we speak about what exactly is research ethics, why you have to think so much about research ethics, what are the different aspects associated with research ethics, then what is article writing ethics. So we talk a lot about ethics today in today's webinar because the whole thing is associated with plagiarism, and hence ethics become the most important part. The necessity to consider about plagiarism. What is plagiarism? Then we are going to discuss in detail about the different kinds of plagiarism that you have. That is either deliberate, patchwork, bluffing, paraphrasing, patchwork paraphrasing, mosaic, accidental, plagiarisms which arise due to authorship issues. And we also talk about self-plagiarism and the plagiarisms which arise due to bibliography and references. Now, how do you identify the plagiarism? What are the various databases that are used? How do you correct the plagiarized document? So it's going to be the bulk of the webinar is going to be about plagiarism. We try to give as many examples as possible to each of the varieties of plagiarisms that we are doing, and we try to cover them in detail. Then we talk about editing and proofreading of the documents. Why is it necessary to do it and how you do it? Then we come and talk about what are the various softwares available for editing and proofreading and how you do it. So enumeration of editing and proofreading will be also shown here. We try to put in like whatever is available from internet and show it. One thing to be remembered, because when we are talking of plagiarism, is that all the softwares are commercial and you need to buy them. So we will give you a sort of walk-in as how to use the software, but then you need to buy it and you use it, and that's where is the issue in most of the cases. Now, as I said earlier also, we have the question answers at the end. So I would request participants to sit back, relax, and enjoy this webinar. You can post all your questions at the end of the webinar and we will answer it to you. If in case, even if we miss your questions, you can write back to us and we will answer it to you separately. So having said it, let us start now with the webinar on plagiarism. So we come to the question of research ethics. So what exactly is research ethics? Now, research ethics is similar to social ethics or ethics that you follow in society. They are a certain set of rules and protocols which need to be followed when you are in a society. The same is true for research ethics as well. They are a certain set of values, norms, and arrangements made by institutions as well as by research publication houses in order to ensure that whatever is being published is genuine and that there are no falsifications in it. Now, so research ethics, as aptly written here, is a codification of scientific morality in practice, which means it is a code which you need to follow so that you are moral or you are on the moral grounds when you are publishing the scientific paper. Guidelines for research ethics specify the basic norms and values of the research community, and hence they have to be strictly adhered and followed, without which it will not happen. Now, they are similar to that of general ethics of science, which are mostly based on the moral aspects which have to be considered. So whether you are a public researcher or you are an individual who is doing research privately, you need to follow the code of conduct. If you do not follow the code of conduct, then you are in real trouble, because you are trying to overcome the ethics and you are not trying to follow it properly. Now, having said it, what are the so-called research ethics which you have to follow, and what are the guidelines that you have here? Now, so as highlighted in red here, first and most important aspect is a good scientific practice. That is, when you are doing experiments, the experiments have to be original. The data needs to be original. You need to be open with your data, whether it's experimental or theoretical, and it should be trustworthy. So that is very important to be considered and utilized as such. Then, apart from that, another important aspect which needs to be considered here is that whatever data you generate or whatever data you utilize, that should be within the frames of the research community and in their regulatory framework, which includes integrity, accountability, impartiality, and criticism. Now, these are quite self-explanatory, but as you do understand here, yes, you have to follow the moral integrity with respect to other researchers. You can't just republish any data published by another researcher because it's against ethics. You are accountable for what you are doing. You have to give data or any of the work that you put it as a research piece of work has to be impartial. You have to give quite clean and honest opinions, and if subjected to criticism, you must be in a position to take it and accept it. Then you should have a cordial relationship with other researchers who are present in the same field. So you should respect them. There should be dignity. On the other hand, you should have confidentiality of your information, as well as there should be informed consent. When I say informed consent, that means you are taking permission from all others if in case you're using any of their data. And then the way, when you are trying to publish, the way it is related with the rest of the society. You should not have any conflicts of interest, meaning there shall not be like any others who come up and say, this is our data you're trying to put forth. Then social responsibility and dissemination of research. All of these are important, and these 4 points which have been mentioned here constitute the core of research ethics. And these particular core of research ethics cannot be deviated, and it has to be followed in the same manner. Now, the same thing has been summarized in this particular figure here, wherein which highlighted circles include integrity as one of the major features, then the respect towards other fellow researchers. Then you have about the regulations that need to be followed when you are publishing your papers. Then it's about dignity, justice, and confidentiality of data, which is important. Then you consider ethical practices, privacy, honesty. Then you talk about autonomy and various other aspects. In fact, whatever has been mentioned in the 4 points are covered here in all of them. And thus, it's very important that you do follow the research ethics carefully and try to understand it. Only then and only then you are in a feasibility that you can, publish properly following the ethics. So having discussed a bit about research ethics, well, to all the participants, let me tell you that research ethics, if you want to know more, there's a lot available on the internet. I just briefly summed it up to say what exactly it is and how it is. So you do not have to worry about it. You could go ahead with it and then read more on the internet, which is put forth in the references as hyperlinks. Then we come to the question of or trying to understand what is academic writing ethics. So when we say academic writing ethics, we are talking of what are the rules and regulations that need to be followed when you are saying about academic writing. Now that's interesting equally. Scientific writing is highly professional. You are trying to make one final report of the experiments that you have done. And when you are making one such final permanent report, this report, when published, will be read by other people, and they try to use it as a source so that they can proceed ahead and work more. So for any given research study, there are innumerable ways by which you can write a report. However, as mentioned here, it has to be legitimate, meaning it has to be within the rules and regulations of the way you have to write the report. Then the amount of writing published in a research study is ultimately dependent upon the researcher. You can write a lot, or you can concise it and you can put it less. But that depends upon the researcher. However, it should be more or less related to the actual research that has been performed. So you should have the exact amount of research that you have done being translated into academic writing. Then the three most important aspects include: it should be original, it should be scientific, and it should be truthful. Now, these three are very important, and so they are the core ethics, whether you go for research or you go for academic writing, because that is how it gets translated from research to academic writing in such a way. Now, having said that, why exactly we have to consider ethics? Research ethics needs to be considered because ethical problems arise when there is a point of conflict between the way you have wrote and the way the reviewers are reviewing it. If the reviewers believe that the way you have written is not proper, then in that case, there is a gross disconnection which leads to research violation of academic writing ethics. Now, here are the 5 points which have been mentioned, which in most of the cases are responsible and are considered for ethical problems. The major one being plagiarism, wherein which you are trying to copy someone else's expression or idea and trying to say it is yours. Okay, that's the major issue. In most of the cases, the code of conduct is violated when you have plagiarism. Then the second one is you write a report that is accurate and unbiased. If that is not followed, then again you are landing in ethical problems. You are doing clinical research and you are not maintaining the confidentiality of data regarding to patients, then you have crossed ethical lines. And there is a term which is widely used called salami publication, wherein which not writing too many papers from a research period, meaning you have one set of data, you use the same data to write 10 papers. Then that is like duplicate publication, or you can call it as multiple submissions, which are not acceptable. So not writing too many papers is another feature which has to be considered if you don't want to violate ethics as such. Then not failing to actually write up and publish a peer-reviewed journal paper. So you have a complete study with you, but you are not writing up to the standards that are required, and you are just failing in the standards. So then that also becomes an ethical issue. So these are the 5 different academic writing ethics which one needs to follow and needs to understand. Only if and if you overcome this, then you do not land up in any problems which are associated with academic writing per se. So having said that, now that introduces us to the concept of plagiarism. So in today's presentation, I'm going to talk quite exclusively about plagiarism. We are going to talk a lot of details about plagiarism, and hence it becomes easy for you to understand. So what exactly is plagiarism? Plagiarism, as it is aptly written here, you are trying to copy someone else's language or data or thoughts or their ideas and trying to paste it as your own. So plagiarism is representation of another author's language, thoughts, ideas, or expressions and putting it as one's own original work. Plagiarism is the highest order of violation of academic integrity in research. If you plagiarize your document, then you can say that you have lost the moral grounds of doing scientific research. There are large number of penalties which will be put forth when you plagiarize. You can be suspended, you can have expulsion from school or work, or you could be put on for a heavy fine which can be added. In both industria as well as in academics, it's a serious ethical offense. In academics, if either the research student or professor does plagiarism, it is considered academic dishonesty or fraud, and the professor can be stripped off of his, what do you call that, his title. If it is a student, it can happen that he can be stripped off of his degree, basically. So it is the highest order of ethical misconduct, which when done can have serious consequences. And hence it is important that you consider how you work out when you are doing it. I have put forth the definition of plagiarism from 3 different universities, which are like the most highly ranked universities in the world. Stanford defines plagiarism as use without giving reasonable and appropriate credit to or acknowledging the author or source. As you can see, if you do acknowledge the author or source, you are done with it. You're not doing it. You are trying to copy the code, formulas, ideas, language, research strategies, writing, or other form. So that is the basic definition by standard. Yale University defines plagiarism as use of another's work, words, or ideas without attribution, which is again equally important. Then Princeton defines plagiarism as deliberate use of someone else's language, ideas, or material without acknowledging them. So in all the 3 cases, whether it is Stanford, Yale, or Princeton, all of them mention the same point, that you are copying someone else's ideas, thoughts, or their complete research work without acknowledging them. That is a standard definition of plagiarism, and that is what is universally accepted definition. Now, the following Venn diagram shows what exactly are the aspects. First, you need to understand what is plagiarism. As it is said here, it is using the ideas or words of others and passing them off as yours. So you need to understand what are the most common types of plagiarisms that we have and how we work out with it. Then you need to know how plagiarism happens. Are you doing plagiarism wantedly, or are you doing plagiarism accidentally? Either of the cases you need to know. In most of the cases, as how for the today's participants are, plagiarism is accidental and is not, what do you call, wantedly done. So you need to know to avoid it. Then plagiarism, if you understand what it is, you will learn skills how to overcome it, and in that way you would have developed effective academic skills which will help you for a long way when you go further in academic career to overcome plagiarism in each step when you are publishing papers. So having said that, why we exactly have to be concerned about plagiarism? I define plagiarism. I said if you try to find it out how it works out, but why exactly is that we have to be concerned about plagiarism? First of all, plagiarism is highly unethical, because then you are being a thief who's trying to copy from someone else and passing it off as yours. By taking others' words and ideas, you are stealing someone else's intellectual property. When I say intellectual property, because they are IP rights for it, intellectual property rights exist. You are violating them by just copying their intellectual property and passing it as yours. Then the other main aspect is you plagiarize, then you pass it off your data and you get the degree. So you are getting, the plagiarizer is getting benefited from this theft and he is getting a degree. Such a degree has no value because he has not done anything on his own. He is only trying to use someone else's data and posting it as his. So it becomes a degree is evidence of its holder's ability and knowledge, which is a very big question mark. If you keep plagiarizing every time, are you even having any ability to think? And do you have any knowledge to do the entire data? So That is the major aspect associated with it. Now, another part, it's like a chain event. You plagiarize it, you submit the degree, you get the degree. So your degree itself is questionable. Then based on the degree, if you get a job, then you are, you are even risking the company where you are joining, because you have no ability to think or do anything. And so the a basis of employment being degree, the basis of employment itself is of no use. In most of the cases, as I said, even to most the participants who are here today, most of the students do not plagiarize because they want to do it. They plagiarize because it happens accidentally. They write it, but it matches with someone else's. So they do it unintentionally. And one of the reasons why students don't know about it is because they don't know what is plagiarism. They write it, they work it out, and they finish it, and they think it is plagiarism. It is plagiarism free, but unfortunately it is not plagiarism free, but it is constituting of plagiarism. So it's very important to first understand what is plagiarism, and only then we go ahead with it. Now, here is what happens if you plagiarize your paper. One, you lose the degree. In the worst case scenario, the university can strip you of your PhD degree. Then all your grades are nullified, or you will be given very poor grades because you have plagiarized the whole document. Then, if you are a professor, your image is at stake, and then you can be most likely be suspended, and an institutional committee will be set up which will decide whether you can continue the institute or you can't. Then disciplinary action happens against you, and overall you lose your image as a researcher. If it is a student also, he loses the image. If he is a professor also, he loses the image. And hence plagiarism per se has huge consequences. So the participants need to understand that plagiarism is a serious ethical offense which needs to be considered very seriously when they are writing their research papers, review papers, or even writing their thesis. Having said that, we shall come back now and try to understand what are the different kinds of plagiarism we have. I will try to give examples for each of them and see and try to enumerate to all the participants what they are and how they are. I have provided examples for most of them, wherein some of the cases where it was not possible, it has not been put forth because it is self-explanatory as such. Now, let us come to deliberate plagiarism. Now, deliberate plagiarism, as the word itself says, it's deliberate, or you're doing it wantedly. You're just copy and paste someone else's ideas, information, or research, and you're passing it as your own. Alternatively, deliberate plagiarism is a process by which you are trying to deceive the academic tutor by passing off someone else's information. So you have to present your subject to the tutor. You just copy from someone else and you pass it as yours. It is the most common form of the plagiarism, and this is the one which has the maximum penalty. This is because when you do deliberate plagiarism, the student shows that he is dishonest and he is not showing consciousness that he is making a mistake. It is particularly very bad for the student and his career path if he gets that he's doing deliberate plagiarism. And hence one has to be very careful that they don't do it. Now, this is an example of deliberate plagiarism which has been put forth here. As you can see, the original source says, in ages which have no record, these islands were the homes of millions of happy birds, the resort of 100 times more millions of fishes, sea lions, and other creatures. Now, when the student has written it as a writer, he changed it like long ago when there was no written history. These islands were home of millions of happy birds, the resort of 100 times more millions of fishes. As you can see here, instead of saying in ages which has no record to these islands, he just changed the first part, but he kept it the same. So writer Hay has included a verbatim passage from his or her source and has failed to indicate its direct quotation. So that is deliberate plagiarism. And you have other cases in which it has been copied word to word exactly in the way it is. Here also that is what has been done. And so when you have deliberate plagiarism coming up like this, it Then we come to the next one called patchwork plagiarism. Patchwork plagiarism is like, it's as the name says, it's patchwork. You take from multiple sources, you stitch them together, and you pass it on as your own. That is patchwork plagiarism. Now, so you are constructing your paper or speech by cutting and pasting together paragraphs and sentences from several different sources, but you do not acknowledge any of them, nor you count it as nor you are giving putting quotations to say it's taken from a source. Then it counts as plagiarism. Now, here is one. For example, here is article A and here is article B. Both of them talk about industrial revolution, wherein which in article A, you're talking about industrialization and its significance associated with social and economic changes. Then you are further explaining it. In article B, you are talking about pre-industrial economies, their focus both in medieval Europe as well as in Mughal India. And then you are trying to say why industrial revolution happened. So a combination of these two is what is the writer has done here. He took a piece of work from the first article A. Industrialization is a period of social and economic change that transforms a human group from an agrarian society into an industrial society. Then he took a piece from article B. The majority of the population was focused on producing their means of survival and had bare minimum necessities. A process called proto-industrialization occurred in Europe as well as in Mughal India and was a first stage prior to industrial revolution. As you can see here, he just copied from one source and other source, and he stitched it together with a bit of modification. But since both of them, this paragraph closely matches with both the original sources and it has been copied from two sources, it is a patchwork plagiarism. And hence it goes directly as a art of plagiarism, and so the work cannot be considered as such. Now, let me give one indication to all participants. The various plagiarisms that we discussed today and that we are talking today, some of them overlap in many aspects. So it is very difficult to delineate them, but the classification of plagiarism exists as such, and hence we follow the same definitions and we use it. So if you find some of them being similar also, you don't have to worry because they are quite identical in that manner. So having said that, let us move to the next particular, plagiarism, which is bluffing. Now, what exactly is bluffing? Now, when I say bluffing, bluffing involves you copy the key source texts and key ideas. Like you are reading multiple papers or multiple books, you get some key sources from there, some paragraphs, texts as from books as well as from others. Then you note down the key ideas, you mix all the key ideas and make your own idea. Now that is exactly bluffing, but that's how you usually do research, but you have to present it in your own way. You're not doing it in your own way at all. Here you are trying to do it in the same way as such. Now this type of plagiarism goes close with what is called as deliberate plagiarism or paraphrasing plagiarism or patchwork, because the student is using the work of other authors and he's claiming ownership. But it is not exactly like you're cut, copying, paste in the same way, but there are differences you do here when you're doing it. Bluffing has become an increasingly popular mode of plagiarism. The reason is because nowadays you have so much of internet available. You just go read from there, you cut, copy, paste, modify, and present it out. So that is how is bluffing. Now, here, the internet has a vast repository of both books and academic journals. And when you have both books and academic journals, students can copy and paste the citations without making any attempt to read and interpret the text. So they just sit with some 20, 30 papers, they copy whatever is relevant, they just modify and present it. They don't understand what it is. Therefore, it gives an impression that the student has studied a lot, and that he has, done a very good exercise and presented it. However, for the tutor, it is very easy to make out whether it is his own idea or he has copied it. So the impression is false because the two tutors can spot it when bluffing happens. So now that introduces us to the next aspect called paraphrasing. Now we are going to talk a bit detail about paraphrasing because this keeps coming again and again in academic research. When we say paraphrasing, it's like the word itself means to rewrite or to reorganize. It is restating the meaning of a text or passage using your own words. So you are copying something from somewhere else, but then you're rewriting it so that it looks as though it is yours. That is what is called paraphrasing. A paraphrasing typically explains or clarifies the text that is being paraphrased, as aptly it is said. So what happens exactly here is, in paraphrasing, you use your own words to explain the context, and then you rewrite using those words. For example, as shown here, the original statement has signal was red. If you put the same thing, then it's plagiarized. In the paraphrased one, you say the train was not allowed to pass because the signal was red. And that is how you do the paraphrasing aspect. So you are giving a logic why the signal was red, and you're not just saying that the signal was red. So paraphrasing preserves the essential meaning of the material, but it tries to give it in your own way, and hence it does make a lot of sense. Paraphrasing helps in most of the times to overcome as what is called as the plagiarism associated with the writing aspects. Here is one example of paraphrasing. The original source text, which is highlighted in yellow here, the progress has been slower than was anticipated. Now, when you paraphrase the document, according to Baylis, so you have put forth the original paper from where you're trying to communicate. Although the implementation of privatization programs has been a priority for many governments, progress in the area has not been as rapid as expected as it was in early 1980s. So that statement, progress has been slower, is modified to has not been as rapid. So you are communicating the same meaning, but you are giving it in your style. You are giving it in your words. So that is where paraphrasing has a lot of importance, and that is where paraphrasing is very helpful. Now, why exactly you need to paraphrase? We'll try to understand the logic behind paraphrasing. When you paraphrase the document, whatever you have done, say even if you have copied from somewhere else, you are trying to show that there is clarity of thought. So you are trying to make a clear understanding of the original text. So this is the original text and I have modified it appropriately. So there is clear understanding of the original text. Then it also shows that you have sufficient knowledge that you can rewrite the original material in your own words. It also shows that you can frame any topic and do it on your own. You fully understand what you have read, and you are giving a clear and concise idea of the whole topic. Now, when you paraphrase, it gives a scope for the scientific community to acknowledge the fact that you are knowledgeable in a given field. Oftentimes, when you try to paraphrase, you learn the subject very clearly, and hence it becomes easy for you. So the original text many a times has got a large number of words and sentences. However, when you paraphrase, you remove all those long statements and sentences and you write it clear and crisp. So it becomes very easy in that way for anyone to understand. So these are the advantages of paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is not just to write in your own words. It gives an idea and clarity about how good as a researcher you are and how much you have understood the topic. Now, how exactly do you paraphrase? Here are some of the things which I have put forth here. First, take the original text, whatever has been copied, make a printout of it and try to understand. You make a note of the key ideas. So once you make a note of the key ideas, write a version in your own words. Then you put forth the original text and your version very clearly and then compare it. and then do the amendments appropriately, such that the paraphrased version, though retains the meaning of the original text, it will have its own identity. And don't forget to put the source in the form of reference, either in the beginning or in the end of the paraphrased material. With that, you will be successful in doing the paraphrasing. Now, I have spoken about paraphrasing and the need for it because there is what is called as paraphrasing plagiarism. So, in most of the cases, the participants might now start thinking, if I have already paraphrased it and I have written it the way it has to be, why is then again there is a plagiarism? The plagiarism in paraphrasing arises from the fact that you don't provide the citation. If you don't provide the citation, you don't quote, you don't put within quotations and cite it properly, it is considered as a plagiarism. Paraphrasing itself is not plagiarism. Since you didn't cite the source properly, it is plagiarism. However, paraphrasing becomes plagiarism when you read a source and then rewrite its key points as though you are its own idea. Now, that's almost like the deliberate one. If you don't cite it, then yes, it's plagiarism. You have taken the key ideas from the original text, but you have retained them and didn't modify. That means you didn't paraphrase it properly. Then again, it's plagiarism. If, say, for example, you are taking a piece of text from another language, you need to correctly cite the original source. If you don't do that, again, it's plagiarism. A translation without a source, a paraphrasing without a source citation are plagiarisms. So, hence, you have to be very careful about it. Now, this is the example of paraphrasing plagiarism. That's the original one, wherein which it has the citation for Cronin 1995. Now, here is the one which has been paraphrased. So the whole thing, which is talking about European history and related aspects, has been paraphrased here. Like before the 18th century, the word wilderness had very different associations than it does today. Far from being tourist attractions, wilderness areas were considered bleak, barren places, and that inspired fear, confusion, landscapes to be avoided rather than actively sought out. It has been nicely paraphrased from the original, but there is no citation. So it's incorrect and is an example of paraphrasing plagiarism. However, when you are correcting it out, here you are putting very clearly the particular Cronin 1995 and page 70, which has been added here. And so when you add it here, it becomes correct. And so it's properly paraphrased without any plagiarism as such. So that is the example for paraphrasing plagiarism. Now, another aspect is patchwork paraphrasing. Now, this is something which is very close to direct plagiarism or close to patchwork plagiarism and is identical to. But the only difference here is that when you are doing patchwork paraphrasing, you are paraphrasing in bits and pieces and you are still retaining the original source. Usually when that occurs, when a writer copies material from several sources and rearranges to form a mosaic pattern, but he does not acknowledge the sources. That's a typical definition of patchwork plagiarism. It can also be defined as inserting parts of someone else's text in someone's own words into content without giving proper acknowledgement. Much like direct plagiarism, here also you have a lot which is common to original source and hence you are landing in issues. So the idea of patchwork paraphrasing is that you paraphrase, you have copied from multiple sources, you paraphrase them, but when you are mixing, you're retaining some of the original aspects and hence it becomes patchwork paraphrasing. Now let us see, this is a typical example of patchwork paraphrasing. Now, in this whole paragraph, the highlighted parts are the ones which are problematic because they are either, the ones which are underlined, like function in hierarchy, designated experts are assigned to patients and others per se, as in this paragraph. They have either been copied from the original source or they have not been modified or partly modified or here, but they have been cited. Here, the author has cited it properly, but citation alone is not enough because you have borrowed pieces or quotation marks from other people and you are working it out. So this paraphrase is typical patchwork paraphrase, which is not acceptable. Then comes to the aspect of mosaic plagiarism. A mosaic plagiarism, as how I said, it's mosaic. It's a combination of multiple things with no proper citations and having even some aspects of direct copying. Mosaic plagiarism occurs when a student borrows phrases from a source without using quotation marks or finds synonyms for the author's language while keeping the original material. So, mosaic plagiarism is punishable and it's academic dishonesty. Now, this kind of plagiarism will require more effort than deliberate plagiarism. It's not just copying and pasting. You are mixing multiple copied paste ones with slight modifications and you are presenting it. You have to rephrase passages slightly and then you have to do it. It goes more to patchwork paraphrasing, but it's slightly different because you might not paraphrase so extensively as how you do in patchwork paraphrasing. So, this is the example of mosaic plagiarism. As you can see here, in ages which have no record, these islands were home to millions of. Contrast the condition into which all friendly Indians are suddenly plunged now, with their condition only true previous, and the details are in the source here. Now, student writer B, when he did it, he changed it out, he modified it, but he kept were suddenly plunged into new conditions, which is exactly what is written here, are suddenly plunged now. Are suddenly plunged into new conditions, including starvation, martial law, and others. Now, as you can see here, when I'm saying it out, writer B has borrowed with slight variations an uncited phrase from his or her source. As it's written, the passage would not constitute a paraphrase because though if he puts the correct particular acknowledgement, there are some words from the original source which are coming here. And if you have words from the original source which are coming here, then it does not have any significance. It is considered as plagiarism. Then we come to accidental plagiarism. Accidental plagiarism is when person neglects to cite the sources, or he misquotes the sources, or he accidentally paraphrases a line which matches with the original source, though he has no such intentions. It is done unintentionally. And let me tell all the participants that most of the students commit accidental plagiarism. It's rare to see, direct plagiarism as such. Now, unintentional paraphrase, a source by using similar words, group of words, or sentence structures without attribution is accidental plagiarism. So students must learn how to cite their sources, and they have to be careful when how they are putting it well within quotations and how you are doing it. Now, lack of intent does not absolve the student of responsibility for plagiarism. Now, so here, though it has been accidental, but still it is a punishable offense. Cases of accidental plagiarism are on rise, and hence it's very important that you consider the consequences carefully before you do any of the aspects. Now, here is the example for accidental plagiarism. In ages which have no record, these islands were home of millions of happy birds, the resorts of 100 times more millions of fishes. That's the original text. Plagiarism, long ago there was no return history. These islands were the home of millions of happy birds, the resort of 100 times more millions of fishes. As you can see, though he modified it a bit, but it retains the source. So writer has included a word-for-word passage from his or her source without any indication that it's a direct quotation. Now, you might argue at point that participants might say that this could be also direct plagiarism, which cannot be ruled out, but if the student has done it accidentally without his knowledge of the original text, then it is accidental plagiarism. As I have said, most of these kinds of plagiarisms overlap very neatly, and so you don't have to worry about it. One of them could overlap with other very easily. Then, inaccurate authorship. Now, when you have authorship issues, it becomes a major concern for plagiarism. Now, what exactly is inaccurate authorship? When an individual contributes to a manuscript, but his contribution is not reflected, or Somebody has not contributed, but his name has been credited. This is a serious violation of code of conduct and is punishable. It is also possible that the researchers give it to a third party for editing and they use their names also in publication. In this case, the recommendation is to acknowledge the contributors at the time of publication, even if they are not listed as authors. We will come back and discuss a bit about who are co-contributors, who are authors, and who to whom credit has to be given, because we have a slide explaining that in the later part of the presentation. Now, inaccurate authorship is also called as misleading authorship, because it is like who should be given the authorship and who shouldn't be. Technicians only do the work, so they don't become joint authors. They become they have contributed to it. They are not the main ones. Authorship should involve only those who contribute directly. And always remember that you discuss the authorships about the project before you start it and even before you publish it. Now, self-plagiarism. This is another kind of plagiarism which is most widely seen of late. Self-plagiarism, when you say, is like you are trying to copy your own published data and again trying to republish it. So you're recycling your own words and data. While it doesn't cross the line of true theft, nonetheless, it is not acceptable, because self-plagiarism is often considered as duplicate publication, because you are trying to put the same thing in two different places. Also, if you are trying to do that, your credibility is at loss, and so that means you are not being sufficiently knowledgeable enough to produce another paper. Now, there are a lot of disadvantages which are associated with self-plagiarism. So what are the disadvantages? Now, it crosses the line of ethics of fundamental role of research papers. So you can't publish duplicate publications, and you're crossing the ethical code of publishing. Now, self-plagiarism deals with integrity of research record and of scientific discovery as a whole. So when your manuscript contains recycled information, you are trying to present the same discovery and trying to fool people. Now, a term most widely used called the salami slicing data is where you use the old material and you try to publish again and again. So there you get with duplicate publications as well as with multiple submissions of the same thing again, which will cause problems in future because your credibility and image as a researcher is at stake. Now, another most important part, now the self-plagiarism, that is from the author's point of view. However, another important point is from the publisher's point of view. When you try to take and you have already published the data and the wordings and you try to use the same, you are doing copyright infringement. Then the publishing house can follow a lawsuit and sue you. It's important to note that many of the journals have credit for copyright of the publication. Once you publish with them, the copyright is hosted by the journal. Though you have published it, they host the entire thing. As such, the reuse of material without citation or permission is not acceptable, and hence you have to be very careful about it. Then journals will catch your publication and then they can ban it, they can delay it, ban it, or they can bar you from publishing further. If you have copied a text from a previously published paper, it will be flagged during this process. Even if you are not rejected in this issue, it will be rejected elsewhere. And plagiarism software such as Authenticate can easily get it done faster and know that you have done it. So then, contributing author plagiarism. As I said, when an author copies the complete data word to word without the use of quotations or sources of the other author, then it becomes contributing plagiarism. It's like a complete plagiarism, but it's not in full part, but in text, in bits and pieces. It is dishonesty. There are serious considerations for this, and you might be even barred from doing your PhD or from doing your research work. Now, this is what is important. When you start away the research, it is important you understand who are authors, who are co-authors and contributors. Authors are the ones who have put in the intellectual input. They are the ones who make the drafts, they get the results and entire thing. Contributors have contributed by doing small pieces of experiment as such. And co-authors have no role to play with the paper. They are just they do not contribute significantly. They might have done some funding and other aspects. So a co-author, in that way, you have to delineate between author, contributor and co-author very clearly. Then aggregator plagiarism. It is again, it involves that you are not citing the sources properly. There is very little original work. It's like patchwork and is very similar to Mosaic plagiarism. Now, as you can see here, for example, in the original source, from the original source, the writer has copied it word to word without even giving the source. If you don't do that, then it's an aggregation. It's almost like direct plagiarism. Then outline plagiarism is one where you want to make an outline for a presentation for your work. You look at someone else's work and you find that that outline is very good. In that case, you just try to copy that outline and use it as yours with a bit of paraphrasing. Then that is what is called as outline plagiarism. You like the way it's organized, so you copy the headings and you use them. So then it's outrighted plagiarism as such seen. For example, as you can see here, that's the source. That's the plagiarized outline. So you are preparing for a disaster overview, building an emergency pantry, emergency supply items and others. In few places here, they have changed it, but most of it is same as this, and hence it's an outline plagiarism. Then you come to bibliography. So a bibliography basically is references plus the pieces of the material which have been used from references. It is a list of all sources you have used, whether referenced or not, in the process of researching your work. In general, when you talk of bibliography, you include author's name, title of the works, the names and locations of the companies there you published. Means if you have published already your paper, then you are talking about the names and locations of the companies that publish your copies of the sources, the dates where it has been used and published, and the page numbers. So everything in such has to be included very clearly. A part of bibliography includes references. The referencing style is very important and you have to stick and adhere to it. Only when you adhere to the referencing style, it becomes easy to understand. Like most of the cases, it's the author date referencing style which you have. APA or American Psychological Association referencing style. Then you have OSCOLA, which is for law. Then you have Chicago for politics IR. Then the numbered ones include Vancouver and IEEE. Harvard is mainly for social sciences, MLA for language and linguistics, and for humanities, you have MHRA, which as the reference style. We'll briefly cover a few of the reference styles, not all of them, which are most widely used. For example, if you take Harvard style, that's the author date style, you always have the author first followed by the date. However, that is how you put when you are doing the bibliography. But when you are doing in-text citation, you put in brackets the author, the date, and the page number very clearly. That is the Harvard style of referencing that you have. Now, Vancouver style of referencing uses numbers. So when you are using numbers, you put number in the square bracket. And when you are doing the list of references, number 1 means it should start with same reference. It can't start with anything else. And when you are doing Harvard style, you will arrange the references alphabetically. In numbered style, you can't do that because it's numbering. APA style is very similar to Harvard style because you have the author first followed by the date. However, when it comes to reference lists, it's arranged alphabetically, and in-text citation will not have page numbers unlike Harvard. In Harvard, you give the author, you give the year and the page number. Here, you don't do that. You go ahead with different kind. You just don't have the page numbers present. Then Chicago style, as is shown here, That kind of referencing utilizes both footnotes and endnotes. It typically is accompanied by a bibliography page. As you can see here, this is how you do the citation. Year comes later, much in the end. In the bibliography, you have year in the end, which is mentioned. Then IEEE is similar to Vancouver, which includes citations utilizing the numbers in square brackets. Examples of in-text citations include these. The reference list that you will be having is similar, that particular number and that particular citation with the year in the end. Now, what exactly is the difference then between bibliography and referencing style? When you talk of bibliography, it has the format same as reference list, but it includes materials used for preparation of your work. However, when you're talking of reference list, it only includes the sources which have been used to write, and they are arranged in a particular format. Now, why I have been speaking about the referencing style, it's important because when you're giving citation sources, they have to be given in the way a particular journal wants. If you don't do it, then it could be considered as plagiarism. So having said that, this is an example of annotated bibliographic plagiarism. So you have annotated the bibliography in the way it needs to be, but still it has plagiarism. Original material abstract here, as it says, analysis of 32 years of standardized survey catches indicates so and so. In the writer statement, examining 32 years of standardized survey catches. So here you have copied the same thing, you just change from 32 number to 32 year, which could still be considered as a bibliographic plagiarism. So you need to essentially put in the years and the page number along with the author if possible, or any further details to avoid this kind of plagiarism. Now, so having said that, then it's important you need to prepare the references properly. Whatever you are reading, however you are reading, however you are doing, spend the time, okay? Take the reference details properly. You read, you do the notes taking, keep records for every source and record everything. Title of the book, journal, web page, author pages. Organize it properly. Use the referencing databases such as Zotero, EndNote, or any others, and then you could get it done in a proper manner. Then there is an important question. Many a times participants have this question: are references included in plagiarism? The answer is no. References are never included in plagiarism checks of a document. They are usually excluded from the automated plagiarism check, as they would naturally throw up a very high percentage similarity. And usually when you put it for plagiarism check, the plagiarism check works out and it gives you, in most of the cases, the plagiarisms are done by automated softwares. So the journal editors look back at the plagiarized version report and they make the changes appropriately before communicating to you. Now, many journals not only exclude the references section, but they also exclude the methods section because it is monotonous and repetitive and it will have very high amount of plagiarism. You can do a plagiarism check on your manuscript, which excludes references and methods, and then you check it out and you use it appropriately. Now, how exactly do you identify plagiarism in a given material? There are certain signature sequences which have always been useful and helpful, which tell you how to identify plagiarism. The first one is mixed citation styles. You are not following a specific source for citation. The way you are citing the document makes very good impression about it. You are not following a proper citation style. It's not uniform throughout, then it's mostly plagiarized. There are no quotations or references which have been used, showing that you are not citing the sources properly. The paper has not been formatted properly. The paper has topic which is not very relevant to whatever has been written in. The spelling and the style are very odd. The source of papers or articles must be read very clearly. Okay. Then the URLs which are mentioned in the paper do not match when we try to go and look for the URLs. And when you try to feed it into plagiarism detector softwares, you find high amount of plagiarism. These are the signature sequences associated with plagiarism in a given material. So you have to be really, really careful that you check it out thoroughly before you submit it to any journal. Now, that gets us to what are the various softwares that are used for plagiarism checking. There are several softwares which are available which can be used for plagiarism checking. I can't cover all of them available because it is beyond the scope of this presentation. We will talk about the most abundant ones and the most widely used ones. So let us start with the various softwares that we have. First one is Safe Assign. As the name itself says, it is very safe to assign a top project to it. It will work out and give you. Now, it's provided by My Dropbox. It has a unique algorithm which will try to match whatever you have given with its existing collection of the databases and come back and tell you the plagiarism report. Now, when students submit to Safe Assign, that particular data is matched with so many of them, which include institutional document archives, global reference databases, ProQuest journal database, and internet. It matches with all of them, and then it comes down and tells you whether it is correct or whether it is not correct. Now, this is a typical way the Safe Assign gives you its output. You can see that there is numbering. Number 1 is the highest plagiarism, followed by number 2. Then the percentage plagiarism is shown here. Then you have the particular sources from where plagiarism is arising, where it is matching with clearly. So almost all the plagiarism softwares will show the link from where the matching is happening. You go and click the link, you will find statements which are similar to or identical with it, and hence you can work it out very easily. Then there's one more software called the Docol-C. This is provided by Institute, IFALT. This plagiarism finding tool searches for fragments in the text which match with other documents. The documents are uploaded, and then there is an extensive review done by the software and the database. Then they come back with a report which will give you the details as such, and you can work it out. So there are 3 steps in it. First, you have to log into the software. Second, you have to upload the paper. Third, you have to download the report. And these 3 have to be done. Only then you can work it out. Now, this is the example of DocLock. You need to have a specific what is called as registration, and hence it's a payment one. Here you give your ID, password, and login. Then it has the options whether you need demo or professional. We go for professional, and we do plagiarism search. You can ask to send the report to your email account or to your account created in Docol-C, and then or to combination of both, and it will tell you what is it and how it is finally. Then we come to the next one, which is Plagiarism Finder. Now, Plagiarism Finder is one of the ones which has been, utilized by many people. It can be directly downloaded on user's computer, and it searches the internet for possible occurrences of a text fragment from the local collection of the databases it has. It detects duplicate contents not only using online tools but also using proprietary databases. So this is how is a plagiarism finder's report. The total plagiarism and the various web sources are shown here below. You go and click the hyperlink, and it will show you from where is it matching with which source, and then how to modify it out. Then the next one that we have is DupliChecker. DupliChecker is a free online plagiarism checking software. However, to all the participants, let me tell you, whichever plagiarism checker is available free online, you can't do the whole thesis or whole paper plagiarism because there is a limit for the word count, and they give you only plagiarism for that much. So though it's free online, you can't rely too much on it. You need to have, purchased edition of it and use for the full checking. DupliChecker provides a statistical result of each text by scanning it with its analytic databases. You can do up to 50 plagiarism texts in a single day, and then you can also get the word count of the content as how it is. So if you see as how the dupli checker looks, this is how it is. Now you have the GoPro side, you have deep search support up to 10,000 words, accurate reports and no ads. However, when you see here, it's only 1,000 words is the limit because the free versions only have 1,000 words. They don't go beyond that. And I would say that the participants should not use so low word count. Say if your paper is 4,000 words, you keep checking 1,000 words at a time. You will get plaque check and you'll rectify it. But if you feed the whole document, you'll get a different plagiarism report, which will not match with these. And hence it's important that you feed the whole thing and get one consistent report. So that is how is the dupli checker looks like. Now this is how is the outcome from the dupli checker. You have the plagiarism scan report. You have it as it shows here, it's 38% plagiarized and 62% unique. Then you have the markings. It might not have the scoring as 1, 2 here, but you have for each of them it shows how much similarity it is and from where is the similarity arising as such. And hence it becomes, you know what, it's called as very interesting to see how much is the plagiarism in your existing content. Then the next one that you have is Viper Plagiarism Checker. Now Viper is a web-based piece of software. It is easy to use interface. The interface is very good of Viper and it scans with a large number of documents. It takes only 3 steps to do it. You check it, you scan, compare with 10 billion sources. That's very high. So the sources include books, journal articles, websites, and much more to review. Viper was launched in 2007 as a sample for drag and drop study. Later on, it was set up for plagiarism extensively. There is a free option available, but that doesn't work well. You need to subscribe for Viper and then you can use it and you can, make an extensive review of it. Then this is the Viper Plagiarism Checker, which you have, and that is how is the outcome of it. It shows that the total plagiarism score is only 5%, and it marks it out and shows for each one in the color coded that how much is the percentage of plagiarism. Then we come to Turnitin. Turnitin was developed by US company with the same name. It's an internet-based plagiarism detection. It was founded in 1997 as a software for university and high school students, such that they can look for plagiarism in their return material, utilizing the databases to which Turnitin has access to. Now, the results can identify similarities with existing sources and can also be used in formative assessment to help students learn to avoid plagiarism and improve their writing. However, Turnitin is not suggested one for plagiarism checking because there are a lot of flaws in it, and that there have been even complaints that its plagiarism checking is not accurate. As of now, Turnitin is not available freely. You need to, you go and register with it and pay the money and you get it done. Now, this is how the Turnitin plagiarism report looks like. A match overview total is 45% with there's a numbering here, 1, 2, 3 and others. Each of them, how much it is plagiarized and to which source it is plagiarized is shown very clearly here. Then Authenticate. Authenticate was developed by Turnitin. This is the best software for plagiarism checking. I again say this is the best software for checking because all the publication houses use Authenticate software. It's a professional plagiarism detection software used by scholars worldwide. Publishers, research institutions, all of them use this. Authenticate helps editors, writers, professional scholars to prevent misconduct by comparing manuscript with its database. The database of Authenticate is huge. It has 60 billion web pages and 155 million content items, including 49 from 800 scholarly publishers. And it is connected to both Crosscheck and Crossref. And they power the Authenticate software, so you can easily make out and get how much is the plagiarism. Now, this is how is the reading done by Authenticate. It gives you the plagiarism check along with the percentage as well as the links from where plagiarism is appearing from the text which is common to the written text as such. Now, so which one to use, Turnitin or Authenticate? Now, as you can see here, if you are a postgraduate student or a researcher staff and you want to check your work, you go for Authenticate. If you want to publish your work or your thesis, use Authenticate. If it's academic teaching staff or undergrad student, you can use Turnitin and there is no problem. Turnitin is like a older version of Authenticate, which is only for grads, only for school students and not for complete researchers as such. Now, another one developed by Turnitin is Right Check. It not only does plagiarism, but it also does grammar checking by ETS technology, and it can be widely used. It provides resource center for checking your essay paper and point in the right direction. It can also do the plagiarism quiz or understanding about its services. Right Check is mainly used by students again for grammar, style, usage, spelling, and originality, and hence both Right Check as well as Turnitin are for only college students, whereas for researchers, it's the Authenticate, which is the best. Though all are developed by Turnitin, Authenticate is the best of all of this. This is how is the Right Check and the outcome it comes, showing where it is matching with and how it is matching face by face. The next one which we have is Plagium. Now, Plagium is a free online plagiarism tracker. How I said, when it is free, the word count is limited. You need to subscribe if you want to check for the whole one. You just need to do a copy and paste. It's like an online scanner. You don't need any specific format for checking it out. It provides quick search services for plagiarism, deep search for depth plagiarism, and file comparison. Now, it says that it can do for any number of words, but the online free services are only for 2000 words at a time. And so you can only do that much. So you have to think about it. If you want more words, then you have to subscribe to the software as such. Now, this is how Plagium looks. So you feed your data here, then you can do quick search, deep search, or file comparison. However, if you can see carefully, like when you get these slides, you can see that there is a cost which is shown here. For quick search, it's 4 cents per page. For deep search, it's 8 cents per page. And for file comparison, it is 0.5 cents per page. So it is not a free service. It needs to be, you have to pay for it and you get it done. So that is how it is. So let me tell one thing to all the participants, that they are far more plagiarism softwares. You can't cover all of them. Of all the ones which I have covered, Authenticate is the best one for any of them because all the journals use it. Then comes the question, how to correct plagiarism? Okay, you feed your text. You have given your text and you have kept it ready. Then you got the plagiarism report. How do you correct it? There are aspects which are important here. First, okay, if the plagiarism is mainly based on the sources and the citations, then you go back, track the sources and put the sources properly. Then paraphrase. If it is statements, paraphrase them and quote them with appropriate citations. You add your own ideas. Always cite the source when you're borrowing a concept or an idea from another paper. So even though if you have summarized it from another paper, please cite the source. If you are using the same words as that of the source material, please cite and quote it. Use a plagiarism checker before you submit. So first, you collect the plagiarized document. You do all the changes in terms of paraphrasing, citations, and others. And then you refeed it to the same plagiarism checker where you did it. You check. If the plagiarism is less than 5%, then you are through. But if still it shows high, you have to correct it. Let me give a point of importance here to all the participants that plagiarism checking needs a lot of patience and is tedious. You need to submit to the same software multiple times till you get the final document to have 5% plagiarism or less. So keep doing it repeatedly, keep feeding it to the same software and get it done. I am trying to emphasize on the fact that it is same software, because if you change the software, again you will be having different report. Use the same software and get it done thoroughly without any problems. Okay, having said that this was the bulk of our webinar was on plagiarism. So there are so many aspects related to the plagiarism that we have considered and we have seen. But then another important aspect is, okay, if we have considered about plagiarism, then we come to other ethical aspects like editing and proofreading. Why exactly we have to do editing and proofreading, and what is the necessity? Now, first we will talk about editing. Editing involves that you check your return material properly and thoroughly for grammatical errors, for line spacings, for spelling errors, for punctuation errors. So it's mostly related to English grammar that you are going to do here. Then editing is making changes to your sentences and surface features of your research paper. Now, a good editing practice also involves spending extra time, because in the past you might have had issues about editing as such. So you try to overcome them and you try to develop a better method of working it out. Now, before we consider editing the paper, it is essential that you should have had the paper written scientifically and it is thoroughly checked for plagiarism. First, finish the plagiarism, ensure that there is scientific accuracy for the paper. Then you go for editing. So you have done all the revisions, and after final revision one is the one you go and do the editing. Once you feel your content is where you need it to be, then it's a time to do the thorough editing process. When you edit, you check for things like grammatical errors, punctuation errors, spellings, and issues related to documentation. And that is where it becomes very important. Now, so what is proofreading then? If editing is about that, then proofreading is slightly different. Now, for example, in case of proofreading is not about errors. It's not about spellings and spelling mistakes and others. Proofreading is about whether the written paper has a logical flow. Are the sentences connecting themselves? Are the sentences interconnected? Is the written material crisp? Then can we get out a better idea from the whole thing? So proofreading is done to check if the idea is being conveyed or not properly. You want to polish your sentences. Then you want to make them smooth, interesting, and clear. Then you do the proofreading. You watch for very long sentences, since they may be less clear than shorter, and then you break those sentences and make them clearer. Pay attention to the style of your writing, follow the same style. Then look for unnecessary phrases, repetitions, and awkward spots. Remove them out, and then you do these all are included in proofreading. Now, there are tips which have to be followed for proofreading. The various tips that have to be followed for proofreading, here they'll be helpful for the participants. Like, first, you take a printout of your whole research paper or review paper or thesis work. First, take a printout. Then read one at a time. Okay, so if your research paper has abstract, keywords, introduction, and other things, don't proofread the whole document in one day. Pick up abstract and introduction for a day. Do it. Then next day you do the remaining sections. For thesis also similarly. If thesis has chapters, you can't finish the whole chapter in one day. You just do one chapter at a time, and then you go ahead, and even in the chapter read only few pages per day, and you don't do the whole thing as such. Then don't consider grammar and spelling check when you are doing proofreading. That you leave that for the particular editing part. You have a rough copy of it, read it aloud and slowly so that you try to understand what are the obvious errors. Have someone else read the paper for you. you go through the paper backwards, that is from your conclusion section to the introduction, and then see if it works out. Then proofread only one part at a time. Ask someone else to proofread for you and give the paper, and then check for familiar errors. In proofreading, we are looking for continuity, flow, which is the most important part here. You're looking for the flow, you're looking for the continuity, and you're looking for logic. Whereas in grammar, if editing, you're looking for grammar, spelling mistakes, and errors. So what exactly is the difference between editing and proofreading? You can see here. Now, editing focuses on improving the flow, accuracy of language, and overall readability. It ensures that your evidences back up your arguments, and it does a detailed review of your whole part. Proofreading, on other hand, focuses on correlating the surface aspects, like are the sentences connected or not? Are the assumptions correct? Is the logic coming out? And is everything fine there? So proofreading is more like quality assurance, whereas editing is more like detailed review. Now, a point of importance, which I will tell to all the participants, if you are not able to see some of the slides where we have put in the schematics, you will get the PowerPoint presentations. You can put it on your computer and they will be much more clearer, and so it will become easy for you to understand. Then there are several of the proofreading and editing tools which have been used or which can be used. Those include Grammarly, ProWriting Aid, Hemingway app, Ginger software, White Smoke, PaperWriter, Language Tool, and SlickWrite. I am not going to cover all of these softwares in detail because there's a reason why we don't need to cover them. I will cover Grammarly and ProWriting Aid a bit in detail, then I will tell you. Now, a point to be remembered for all the participants is all these softwares are based on artificial intelligence based learning. So when you feed it, it is the AI based software which will tell you the errors. So sometimes you might get errors which do not have any meaning, so that you can manually scan it and remove it out. The remaining ones you can work it out very easily. Now let us come to Grammarly first. Grammarly is the best editing and proofreading tool which is available in market. Grammarly also does the plagiarism check, but it is not a free online service. So Grammarly is available freely online, and you can feed any number of words and you can get it done. I use it quite extensively. The advantages of Grammarly include that it has multiple browser extensions. The app online is a full service online app. You can have mobile apps for Android, for iPhone, and others. You can have a MS Office based add-on for Windows. You can have desktop app for Mac and Windows for Grammarly. In that way, it is very, very flexible and highly useful. Apart from that, the other advantages which includes of Grammarly are Grammarly helps in finding grammar mistakes. It helps in finding repetitive words and phrases. It helps you in finding those fine, picky details like spacing and other aspects which are missing, and the basic style issues. If you want to send it to editor, once it's done with Grammarly, you just can go and submit ahead the paper. Then there are no one-click issues, which means in Grammarly, if any of the participants have used it, what happens is when you type the material, whatever you want to check, and you click it in one shot, it works. Usually there is no one-click issue per se with that for Grammarly, but others do suffer with one-click issues. Now, having said that, this is how is the Grammarly's web page looks like online. So you have the free grammar checker. You have the box here where you can feed it, and then you can ask for check for the entire text. Then once you put that, it will give you the output. Now, when it gives the output here, for example, there's a spelling error which is corrected here, and then you have the spelling and it gives it clearly. In other cases, if there are any particular problems, it will give you very clearly, as you can see here. In this executive summary, at the end of day, successfully launching a new product means reaching the right audience and consistently delivering a very convincing message to avoid spending money recklessly because of distributed strategies. Now, the first and the foremost mistake pointed out by Grammarly here is at the end of the day. As you can see in the comment here, the phrase is often overused and may not be necessary. You can consider removing it. You can remove it because here you don't need it at the end of the day. In successfully launching a new product in itself is enough. And in other two cases, it's like delivering a very convincing message is not required. You can say delivering a convincing message. You don't use such adverbial pronouns funds because convincing itself is a good term. And the other one, you can rephrase it out. So Grammarly not only just tells you the various aspects, it also helps you to overcome. One thing is Grammarly, if you want to use online for free, you have to log in with your email ID, which will be helpful for you to do it out. Then, after having said that, we come to Pro Writing Aid. Pro Writing Aid works very well with Chrome, Google Docs, MS Office, and others. However, it has issues with one click. When you do one click for it, it doesn't work properly. Interface that it uses is not clean. Navigation is not good. Then extra features such as reports and others are not properly organized as such. The same is true for all others which I have mentioned. Of all the writing and editing and proofreading ones, Grammarly is the best. Remaining all suffer with glitches in their AI learning software, which make it very cumbersome to use it. So I would suggest if you want to use for editing and proofreading, please go ahead with Grammarly and finish it off. Don't consider any others for your work as such. So having said that, this is a concise summary of today's webinar on plagiarism, proofreading and editing. Let me tell you, none of the plagiarism softwares are free. Since they are not free, you need to buy them. Whatever available online, they look to be free, but it's for limited word count, and hence you need to do it in a better manner, that you need to register and buy them. Otherwise, it will give you false results. And Grammarly being available freely online, please go ahead and use it, and it will work it out very well with it. So, having said that, we have writing and editing services for you. In case you have issues with editing or paraphrasing or writing, please do contact us on the WhatsApp number, or please contact us on the given info@researchgraduate.com, and we will be helpful to you in any ways. Now, you can get the plagiarism checking done by us. The cost will be 0.25 per word, which means if you have an article of 2000 words, we will be charging around 500 rupees. If you want to use our plagiarism services, please contact us at info@researchgraduate.com, or you can do the WhatsApp number which is provided here. So having said that, I officially finished this webinar. The webinar is open for live question answer sessions, and you please post your questions in the chat box and I will be answering it for you. Yeah, please post your questions and then I will be happy to answer it to you. So I'm here waiting for the participants to post their questions. Okay, so let me start looking down at the questions from various participants and I'll answer to you one after the other. Shama says, can you explain more on salami publication and duplicate publication? Now, salami publication is nothing but slicing your data and putting it in different places. So you have the same data which overlaps in multiple places and you are putting it for publication everywhere. Whereas a duplicate publication is the same data you're trying to publish elsewhere also. Then Swarnalata has a question. Explain about code of conduct. As I have said, the research code of conduct or academic research writing conduct has those 4 points, Swarnalata, which I have mentioned in my first slides, which includes you shouldn't plagiarize, you should cite your sources properly, and you don't try to do duplicate publication. Then Jushu Binali says, advice on good paraphrasing softwares. Now, see, unfortunately, Jushu, paraphrasing softwares per se do not exist so much. Even if you have to look at it. In fact, that's the reason why we at Research Graduate here are to help you. Because it's very difficult to find paraphrasing softwares as they will be based on artificial intelligence and learning. When you try to use them and you work it out, then it will modify it in the way it wants it, which will not match with what you want. So don't try to use paraphrasing softwares. Try to do it manually, and that will be the best option. Then Rashida says, does plagiarism checker include literature review of thesis for checking? Yes, Rashida. Literature review is included in plagiarism checking. It's only the references and methods section which are not included. Dr. Vangara Anirudh says, thanks to organizing team members for conducting these sessions. Thanks so much. We are always happy to, give scientific information as a process of disseminating knowledge to the society. Then Sonal Jaiswal says, please share all the PPT slides after session. I missed it due to Raksha Bandhan festival. No problem, Sonal. Tejasvi is here to coordinate with you, and she's the one who will help you out with all that process. Polomi says, in which part of research paper we propose the hypothesis and do the hypothesis check? Now, hypothesis is proposed at the end of introduction because you introduce your paper, your topic, and then you propose the hypothesis, and hypothesis check is done in the form of results and discussion. And that's where you write in discussion. Dr. Vikram Raju says, we need the PPT to our mail ID after the session without fail. I thank you. All the participants, we will mail you the PPT. You don't have to worry about it. So if you have any questions right away, you can ask us, or otherwise you will get the PPT. Tejasvi is there to take care of that. Then Polomi says, what is the difference between author, co-author, and contributor? Author is the one who has put his intelligence, he has put in his efforts to develop the project, write it, and formulate it. A co-author is the one who would have done some more of the aspects which are required and which will be done. And whereas a contributor is the one who might have contributed by funding, or who might have contributed by other aspects. So Dr. N.R. Navodaya Raju says, is plagiarism check applicable to review of literature in the thesis? Yes. Polomi says, if we mention the citation, can we quote the exact words? I think you can do that, Polomi. How many maximum references can be used to make a decent research paper? There is no count like that. Usually it goes anywhere between 30 to 40. You can't use many because it will not accepted. Is a paper lacking innovativeness if using too many citations? It doesn't mean it's lacking innovativeness, but it shows that you have lost it somewhere. So you try to use minimum number of them. Then Elavarsan S. Sivakumar says, what about plagiarism software usage? Now, as I have said, most of them need credentials for logging in. So it is not possible for us to do a live demo of that, which is very difficult. So I have put in screenshots to explain to you how you use it. But if you want, you can purchase Authenticate or any one of them, or if your university has access to it, and then you can work it out on your own. These softwares are pretty self-explanatory, and then you don't have to worry about them. Dr. Vangara, Dr. Vikram Raju are okay, fine. Then Ranjana Mishra says, which tool is more accurate and easy to use? For plagiarism, there is nothing like which tool is easy to use, because I also don't have access to them. You can try online with Plagium or any of them, but there is a word limit. But ultimately, you have to buy one and you have to use it. And Grammarly is the best for proofreading and editing. Then Vinita Ramanath Pai says, very good session, very informative. Thanks, Vinita. In future also, we can provide you such good sessions. If you have any such topics, you can let us know. Then Polomi says, can Grammarly detect issues on a word limit while writing a paper? No. Word limit while writing a paper are not detected by Grammarly. If you give 1,000 words, it will detect 1,000. If you use 10,000, it will detect 10,000. Are we counting articles and prepositions? That will be done by Grammarly. You don't have to worry. English checking, Grammarly will do it perfectly. So let it do it, and then you will get to know. Now, Mijo says, how to purchase a plagiarism software? That is easy. Mijo, you just pick up from whatever we have listed, whichever you want, go for registration, then it will give you all the default as how to pay the money and get registered. Now, Shama, okay. Then Milrose D. Paje says, thank you so much, sir. Yeah, thanks, Milrose. We are here to help you anytime. Feb Anna John says, what is the percentage of plagiarism allowed for thesis and review and research paper? In all the cases, it is 5% or less than that. For thesis, the plagiarism cutoff is put forth by, the university, whereas for research papers and review papers, it's less than 5%. What are the different types of plagiarism? Could you please explain? Ten Kumari, I have put it in quite detail in the slides there. So I would request you go through those and then you will understand it very clearly. Bhagyalakshmi says, Grammarly is also not completely free. So with the free version available, is it sufficient? So now, actually, with the free version available, it should be sufficient. Otherwise, you have to buy it and then you have to use it. There is no other option. Then Rajveer says, do you provide help in publishing Scopus Index journals for English literature field? Please, Tejasvi, you just check with this and you can better answer this question. Bijaya, sir says, sir, please tell me how to develop writing skills. Well, that can be a different seminar in a webinar in itself. It is not in the purview of this, so we shall consider it later. Now, Jitendra Kumar says, what is the allowed percentage of plagiarism in journal paper? So, it is less than 5%, Jitendra. Dr. Navodaya Raju posted question in your personal chat. Please answer. I think Dr. Navodaya answered your question already. Nagwang says, could you elaborate on accidental plagiarism? Accidental plagiarism is where you write a piece of work by paraphrasing, but it matches with already existing one. So it is not, it is not very, you're not done by you purposefully, but it happens out. Nigamananda says, can you please explain why Turnitin can't be relied? Because it is for undergrad, it's for college students, and there are some issues with Turnitin for which it has been said not to use it. You go for a better one. Deepesh says, what is the cost of 250 pages plagiarism checking? Now, the question here, Deepesh, is not of number of pages. It is per word count. And as I have put in my earlier slide, please calculate the word count and then you can calculate. So for 2000 words, I think it's roughly 500 or so. Please check my previous slide and then you'll get to know how much is the word count and how you can do it. Then Muhammad Munir Mon Menon says, I am a reviewer in one of the journal for original articles. Please let me know what actually we have to see when we review an article. When you review an article, please look for its originality. Do you think it's really written in an original fashion? There is trustworthiness. You can do it. Feed it in plagiarism checker, get the reports. You'll know immediately how much original and trustworthy is the article. Then you can go ahead and consider it for reviewing. Arun says, what is the difference between review paper and research paper? Review paper doesn't have any data. It is just compilation of the existing literature and what you wish to say. A research paper has true data in it. Feb Anna John says, what about Ubuntu software? Feba, I don't know there is a software like that, but just check out for its authenticity and then only you use it. Dr. S. Ishwari says, shall I prepare paper for my MPhil work, which was done 10 years back? Yeah, you have the rights to do it, Ishwari, if you wish to, but just check that similar work has not been published and so it's still authentic. Rashida Samad says, please make clear again difference between bibliography and references. Yes, as I have said, references is only a part of bibliography. Bibliography includes references along with whatever is the source that you have used, whether you have cited it or not. My slides have that. You can go through it again clearly. Lal says, which style should be used for bibliography, sir? It depends on the journal where you are publishing. The style will be dependent upon that and could be used. Joseph says, please, as a part of program, can you assist us with our project writing? Surely, Joseph, please contact us either by email or by WhatsApp and we can do it. Nazim Bano says, how many references should be there in a research paper for publication? Does copying formulas and images considered? Formulas and images, yes, up to some extent. You can't copy the images. You have to make your own. And you can copy the formulas. There is no problem. There is no limit for references, but less than 50 is preferably what is requested. Sanjay says, is the review part of a thesis excluded from plagiarism? No, you have to put it and check for plagiarism. Shekostili says, thank you, sir, for the informative presentation. Thanks. Then Bobby says, if we take quoted sentence from one source, which was quoted by author from another source, can take the quote as if we can take from the original source? No, that will become secondary citation, but still you have to give the source and you have to give the quotation as such. So I think we are coming to an end of the question answer session. I'm here for another few minutes. If anybody has more questions, please post it. Venkateshan says, how are they measuring plagiarism, 5% or 10%? That will be provided by the plagiarism software. You don't have to worry about it. How much ever it says, you'll get to know immediately. Is book also can give as reference? Venkateshan asks. Yes, books can be put as a reference, but there's a different way of citing it, which the journal will show how to do it. Seema says, can any figure be included with due reference? No. Figures as such you can't include. You have to make your own figures. Arun says, what are important for a paper to be accepted for publication in Scopus Journal? Then you can just go through the guidelines for authors and what they consider it, and that is what you can use it and do it. Muhammad Tosif says, Turnitin is used by many universities in India and abroad. Why can't we use it? You can use Turnitin, but of late there were some comments that it is not a great one. So I would say that you prefer using another one, because the plagiarism check given by Turnitin sometimes has been reported not to be very accurate. Now, Swarnalata says, is references coming under plagiarism? No, they don't come under plagiarism, and you never put them for plagiarism. Okay, Jiganshu Goel says, Manjari says, irrespective of plagiarism check, there is so many things that are copy pasted. What is the next step to check plagiarism? So you copy paste. If you have done it, first feed it into the report, get it checked and done. Then next aspect that you have is correct the entire plagiarized document, paraphrase and check to remove it out. Can introduction part be included in plagiarism? Surachandra, yes, it is included. Then difference between Mosaic and Patchwork plagiarism, follow me. Mosaic and Patchwork are identical, and sometimes you might consider same, but that will be based on the classification. I just took based on the classification, but sometimes they may be similar also. Then Jitendra Kumar says, if you enhance someone's work and produce result which are still somewhat matching, but your work with a different technique, is it still plagiarized work? So yes, Jitendra Kumar, that is true. If you enhance someone's work and produce result which are still somewhat matching, but your work with different technique, is it still plagiarized? Yes, it is plagiarized. Are the free websites like Small SEO Tools useful? Debanjali, no. Actually, they are the worst. I have used them and there is no reliability with those. Sangeeta says, sir, 5% is allowed for survey paper? Yes, it is allowed. Then Jiganshu Goel says, thanks for the great session. Sir, is citation impact on plagiarism or uniqueness? It's on both. Then I think with that, we are, Shweta says, what is the minimum percentage of self-plagiarism allowed in thesis submission? That's also less than 5%. Any plagiarism is less than 5% and you can't go beyond that. Then Vinita Ramanath Pai says, in a sentence, how many consecutive words is considered plagiarism? Usually even one word at times, but it is less. But if you have 5-6 words, then it's considered plagiarism. Now, Gomitammal alias Selvi K says, please tell me which tense used more generally. Usually past tense if you are writing for others' work, and present tense for your work. Then Saraswati says, my PhD thesis, I think. Okay. So if it is, I think we have come to the end of question answer session. If any of your questions by mistake have not been answered or have been forgotten or we couldn't see it, please write back to us and we will answer it. Don't worry about it. So we will answer back to you and you will get all the related aspects. The participation certificate will be emailed to you by 4:30 tomorrow. You'll get the recording of this webinar and PPT on your email at 2:45 p.m. today. So having said that, thanks for attending the webinar. See you in the next webinar. I hope all of you have enjoyed this webinar. So if any of participants by mistake we couldn't see the questions or if we missed it out accidentally, please write back to us and we will answer back to you. And there is no issue about it. These are the various references that have been utilized. So if you want to use any of the links, go ahead and work it out and you will get it done. Having said that, thanks for attending the webinar and making it highly successful. So if there are any further questions please do email to us, list out your questions and send it, and we will work it out and we will send you. With this, we officially end the webinar and we hope that all of you have enjoyed it. See you back in the next webinar. Thank you so much.